Good morning, students. Last time we were discussing about linkage. So today we are going to discuss some more thing about linkage. We are going to talk about linkage group. What is linkage group? See, this can better be explained with the help of simple example. I am saying a diploid human cell is having 46 chromosomes in the nucleus, and when this cell is going to form gametes, randomly each chromosome is present in a homologous pair. So during gamete formation there will be random inheritance of one of the chromosome from this pair. That means each gamete is going to receive 23 chromosomes out of the 23 pair of chromosomes, and the chromosome that is coming in the gamete is completely a random chance. Another gamete is also receiving 23 chromosomes, and that is also a random chance. And in linkage we said that when a chromosome is getting inherited, all the genes that are present on a chromosome, they are linearly arranged, they are also getting inherited in the gametes. So these 23 chromosomes, when they are inherited in the gametes, all the genes that are present in these 23 chromosomes are also getting inherited in these gametes. So these are making our linkage group, because they are combinedly inherited together. So linkage group will be haploid set of chromosomes in an organism. It will be equal to haploid set of chromosomes, because these haploid set of chromosomes are going to be transferred from the germline cells to the gametes, and when chromosomes are getting transmitted, the genes that are present on them are also transmitted. And in gamete formation only haploid set of chromosomes are transmitted. That means the genes that are present on the haploid set, on these haploid set of chromosomes, will behave as linkage group. So if 46 number of chromosomes are present in human beings, that means 23 linkage group are present in a human being. So whenever gamete formation will take place, 23 chromosomes are going to inherit, and the genes that are present on these 23 chromosomes are also going to inherit together. That's why we are saying linkage. Another organisms like in fruit fly, Drosophila melanogaster, there are 8 number of chromosomes, or you can say 4 pair of chromosomes are there. So the linkage group will be 4, equal to the haploid number of chromosomes. In Pisum sativum, that is having 14 number of chromosomes, or you can say 7 pair of chromosomes. So 7 linkage groups are there. This is how linkage group is formed. Now by using linkage, one of the scientists was there, Sturtevant. He made a linkage map, means by knowing the position of the genes, and position can be known by simply knowing how close the genes are present to each other. So by using the linkage map, the scientist tried to find out the distance between the genes, and now this distance between the genes, or these linkage maps, are easily used in the human genome sequencing. Now we have completed the human genome sequences under the Human Genome Project. We are knowing which gene is present at which loci of the chromosome, and linkage map was very helpful in sequencing of human genome. Now just a opposite phenomena is taking place to the linkage, and that is crossing over. Crossing over. Crossing over is just opposite to linkage. In linkage, we are saying the genes are having the tendency to get inherited together, and there are no formation of recombinant types. In crossing over, we are saying that exchange of genes are taking place and the chances of recombinants are getting more. So we are trying to understand what is crossing over. If we want to define crossing over simply means there is mutual exchange of chromosomal segments between non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes. And this exchange of chromosomal segments is leading to variations, or you can say it is leading to the formation of recombinants. And this process of crossing over is taking place in meiosis 1. And because of this crossing over, in sexual reproduction, the chances of variations are more. Later on, we will discuss about variations. So the chances of variations are more, and more chances are leading to the evolution. Let's see what is happening in crossing over. Crossing over is having 4 stages. It is taking place in 4 different steps. The first step of crossing over is synapse. This synapse is taking place at zygote substage of prophase of meiosis 1. These whole processes are taking place in meiosis 1. So prophase, zygote is a substage of prophase. Then meiosis 1, what is happening in the synapse, or you can say synapses, homologous chromosomes, 2 homologous chromosomes are going to align themselves nearby each other. And there is a complex, we can say there is a force that is holding these 2 homologous chromosomes together. Later on we have in +1 we have seen that this is synaptonymal complex that is going to hold these 2 chromosomes, these 2 homologous chromosomes together. And here the chromatids are not properly separated yet, so we are getting a bivalent stage. So the first step of crossing over is these 2 homologous chromosomes are going to pair and come close to, they will lie parallel to each other, and there is a force that is going to hold these 2 homologous chromosomes. Now the second stage is tetrad formation. Tetrad formation is taking place in the next Pectine substage of prophase. At this substage, the chromatids are going to separate, and when these chromatids are going to separate, we are looking like, these structures start looking like, this is because of the separation of chromatids. This is one chromosome, and this is the, I am making it with another color, this is the second homologous chromosome, and because of the separation of the chromatids, a tetrad formation is taking place. So this is a tetrad formation. In this tetrad formation, these are 2 homologous chromosomes with their chromatids. Now these 2 chromatids of one single chromosome are known as sister chromatids, and these 2 chromatids of 2 homologous chromosomes are known as non-sister chromatids. And in the definition of crossing over, we saw that exchange is going to take place between non-sister chromatids of 2 homologous chromosomes. 2 nearby non-sister chromatids means these 2 are present near to each other, so they are going to perform the process of crossing over, and these chromatids will remain same. No crossing over is going to take place between these chromatids. Now the third step is crossing over. I am removing this one. crossing over. Means the strands are going to cut and they are going to align, form a X-shaped structure across, and exchange of segment is going to take place. This is one chromosome and these are the sister chromatids. It moves like this. This is the second chromosome and it is going to move like this. This is how there is exchange between these structures. The chromosomal structures are going to exchange, and this X-like structure that is formed is known as chiasmata. So during crossing over, chiasmata formation takes place and exchange of segments of homologous chromosomes takes place. And the last one is disjunction. Means when crossing over is complete, they are going to separate from each other, and the result which we are getting after crossing over is now this chromosome is carrying some of the part of its homologous chromosome, and same situation is with the second homologous pair. It is going to carry some of the part of this chromosome. So variations has occurred. Earlier this chromosome was going to carry this segment of DNA, but now it is going to carry this segment of DNA. So we know there are differences. Genes are same because these are homologous chromosomes, but alleles are different because each gene is having multiple allelic forms, means alternative forms. So because of the difference in allelic forms, the variations are going to take place. This is how crossing over is taking place, and this crossing over is leading to the formation of recombinants, new combinations separate from the parental type. Linkage was preventing recombination and crossing over is favoring recombination. Now let's see a simple example and we will see how in a cell the separation is going to take place and what will be the effect on the formation of gametes. So I am comparing two processes. In one process crossing over is not taking place, and in second process crossing over is taking place. So let's see what is the difference that is going to come in the gametes. This is a cell. Here two homologous chromosomes are present. This is carrying two dominant alleles. Here recessive pair is present. This cell is not going to form crossing over. I am taking one more cell. Again dominant one and recessive one. Now here I'll show crossing over, and this side no crossing over will take place. So during meiosis 1, what will happen? These start aligning together. They start bending. Making a big one. This is happening over here, but here crossing over has occurred, means there is exchange. It is moving like this. A, B was there, A, B, and this was AB. Here A, B was there. Means with this small a, now this capital B is going to join, and with this capital A, this small b is going to join. So the situation will be over here. This is the situation because there no crossing over is taking place. Here after this crossing over, what will be the situation? We are getting, I am drawing the same situation over here. A, B. This is the normal one. But here this capital, or you can say this small a is having a capital B. This one is normal, but the small b is having a capital A. So this is happening because of the exchange of segments. And when gametes are going to form from here, so from here 4 gametes are going to form. 1, 2, 3 and 4. All 2 types. These 2 are same and these 2 are also same. Means only 2 type of gametes are going to form over here. No recombination is there. We are having a combination of capital A, capital B and a, small b. No changes. But what is happening over here in these gametes? First gamete, AB, this one. The second one is having small a and capital B. The third gamete is small a, small b. And the fourth one is capital A and small b. So we can see the difference over here. We are here getting 2 parental, or you can say 4 different type of gametes. 1, 2, 3 and 4. The first one and the third one are parental types. AB, capital A, capital B, small b. But this one and this fourth one, they are the recombinant types, and these recombinant types are formed because of the process of crossing over. So significance of crossing over is that it is leading to variations, and we know that variations are the raw materials for the process of evolution, and these variations are also helping us to survive in the changing environment. Now some of the factors are there that are affecting crossing over. The first factor that is responsible for crossing over is simply the distance between the chromosomes. More the distance between the chromosomes, more will be the chances of crossing over. Chromosomes are distant, far apart from each other. That means more number of crossing over can be possible between them. If they are lying near to each other, there is less chances of crossing over. The second one is age. With age, I am discussing linkage also. These factors are also related to linkage. So distance between chromosomes, if less, linkage will be more, and if more, linkage will be less. Age. If increasing age is supporting linkage, that means it is not favoring crossing over. With increased age, crossing over is decreasing, rate of crossing over is decreasing, and linkage is increasing. Means the genes try to set together. The third one is temperature. With increasing temperature, the chances of crossing over increases. So more the temperature, more will be the chances of crossing over, and less will be the chances of linkage. X-ray. When an organism is radiated with X-rays, again the chances of crossing over are going to increase, and the chances of linkage is going to reduce. Sex. In some of the organisms like fruit fly, example is fruit fly, the males are having less crossing over, means sex is also playing an important role. So they are showing less crossing over, while in females the rate of crossing over is very large. So it is depending upon sex of the organism also. There are lots of factors like interference. Interference means when crossing over is taking place at one position, it is inhibiting or it is preventing the chance of crossing over in the next position. So when already one crossing over has taken place, the chance of happening of the crossing over at next locus will be inhibited, and that is known as interference. So these are some of the factors that are affecting the rate of crossing over. If we talk about the types of crossing over can be of many types depending upon the number of positions, number of places on which crossing over is taking place. Single crossing over, means crossing over is taking place at only one position, one place. Simply, this is a chromosome and this is how crossing over is taking between these two non-sister chromatids. Means the two non-sister chromatids will be the normal one. There is no changes that are going to come, and only these two chromatids are having the changes in single crossing over. Now crossing over can be double also. Double means at two places crossing over is going to take place. I am showing in this also. One crossing over is taking place here and the another crossing over is taking place over here. So crossing over is going to take place at two different positions, that is double crossing over. In double crossing over also, these two chromatids will be the normal one and these two chromatids are having different sections that is lying in between the two positions of crossing over. So the section that is lying intermediate in between over here, this section will be the changed section between the two chromatids. And crossing over can be multiple crossing over. Means crossing over is taking place at more than two positions, 3 or 4 or 5. So that is multiple crossing over. These are the different type of crossing over. So this was all about linkage groups. This linkage group is also helping in maintaining or you can say mapping, genome mapping, or you can say making a complete sequencing of human genome. Then crossing over. Now let's talk about another important topic, that is epistasis. What epistasis means? You might get confused between epistasis and dominance. See, epistasis means that one gene is going to suppress the expression or suppress the effect of another gene. That is epistasis. Then what is the difference between dominance? Because in dominance also we are saying that one allele is going to affect the expression of another allele. Epistasis is going to take place between two genes. These two genes, they are going to control one single character, but they may be present on one single chromosome. Suppose a gene A is there and gene B is there. They are present on one single chromosome. Or the situation can be they are present on two different chromosomes. That is epistasis. Means we are talking about two genes. These genes are controlling one single character, and out of these two genes, one is suppressing the expression of another one. That means we are talking about a interallelic situation. Alleles of two different genes. But what we were doing in the dominant law of dominance, here we were talking about only one single gene and alleles of one single gene. Say one was capital A and another one was small a. So this is one gene only that is responsible for one trait, and this is intra-allelic. Allele of one single gene. This is the difference between epistasis and dominance. We are going to talk about epistasis only. So in epistasis, two genes are going to control our expression, but here one gene is going to inhibit the expression of another one, suppress the expression of another one, and the gene that is going to suppress the expression of another one is known as epistatic gene. Suppose A is dominant and A is going to suppress the expression of B. Then A is the epistatic gene, and the gene whose expression is being suppressed by this epistatic gene is known as hypostatic gene. So this is the gene that is behaving as a dominant one and suppressing the expression, and this is the gene that is behaving as a recessive one and its expression will be suppressed. So whenever this dominant gene will be present, it is not going to allow the expression of this one. Means whether it is going to present in dominant situation, still it is not going to express because it is going to suppress its expression. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Epistasis, if we go in detail, epistasis is of two types, dominant epistasis and recessive epistasis. Dominant epistasis means the epistatic gene is present in dominant. If it is present in a dominant condition, then it is going to suppress the expression of another gene. Recessive means when it is present in the recessive condition, then it is going to suppress the expression of another gene. We are going to discuss about the coat color of mice. The example which we are going to take is coat color of mice. Now, this coat color of mice is controlled by two genes, gene B and gene A. It is the homologous pair on which their recessive alleles are present. Now this dominant B is responsible for grey coat color, and this is the dominant one, the wild type. This A is responsible for black color, black coat color of the mice, and these are their recessive forms. That means in recessive form no color will be there, so mite will be white, and white is known as albino. So when only homozygous recessive is there, we are getting a white albino, and what happens over here, when capital B will be dominant, grey color will be there, and if A is dominant, then we are going to get black color. This is an example of recessive epistasis, and this recessive epistasis means when this small a is present in homozygous recessive situation, it is going to suppress the expression of this B, capital B. It is acting as a epistatic gene and it is behaving as a hypostatic gene. So homozygous recessive situation is going to express its expression. Let's see with the help of a cross. In cross, we are going to take again two mice. One will be grey in color. Capital B is present and grey color. B is dominant over A, so the mice will be grey. Over here we are taking the albino. Albino means both are recessive. Because both are recessive, so no pigment will be produced and the mice will be albino. This is our parental generation. Now the gametes formed will be, and this gives us the F1 generation. And this F1 generation is again having dominant B that is going to express because it is dominant over A, so the color is grey. There will be grey color. Now when crossing over is done between the members of F1 generation, what we are expecting in this situation, we are expecting a Mendel's dihybrid ratio, dihybrid phenotypic ratio 9:3:3:1. But here, because of the epistasis, the ratio will change. The gametes that are going to form from here will be, these are the gametes that are going to form, and same gametes are going to form from here also. So with the help of these gametes, we are going to draw a Punnett square that will show us the members of F2 generation. So let's draw a Punnett square. Here we are going to write down the gametes. These are the gametes that are formed in the F2 generation. And we are going to show all the possible phenotypes. 4 gametes, 4 type of gametes are there. So 16 progenies are possible. And this Punnett square is showing all the 16 progenies. So let's write down the combination. These are the combinations that are going to form from here. Capital B, small b, capital A. So these are the all possible 16 genotypes. Now let's see what are their phenotypes. Here capital B is present, and this capital B is responsible for grey color. It is responsible for grey color. Whenever you are going to find a capital B, it is going to give grey color unless and until a homozygous recessive, means small a is present with it, because we are talking about recessive epistasis. It will also be grey. It will also be grey. But what happens over here? I told you that this recessive homozygous is going to act as a epistatic gene, and it is going to inhibit the expression of this capital B. And when A is recessive, no pigment is going to form. That means this will be a albino, because I am marking it. This is a albino, that is showing the epistasis. Now this one will also be grey, because we are having the capital B, grey. This is grey. This is grey. Here small b is small, but A is dominant, and A is responsible for black color. So it is black. This is also black. Here we are getting a grey. Here again we are getting a albino, because we are having a homozygous recessive for A. This is black, because capital A is there. And this will also be a albino, because we are again having small a. If we see all the progenies, we are getting 3 type of phenotypes: grey, albino and black. And if we write down their ratio, the phenotypic ratio for them, grey, we are going to count the grey one, the black one and the albino. This is also albino. I have written by mistake gray because small a is there. So this one is also be a albino. Now let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We are having 9 gray. Then black 1, 2 and 3. Albino 1, 2, 3, 4. So the mono dihybrid ratio has changed now. It is 9:3:4 and this change has come because of the epistasis that is done by the recessive allele. So this is how epistasis is going to take place. Another small topic of this chapter is pleiotropy. What pleiotropy means? We discussed about polygenes. See, earlier we were saying that one gene is responsible for one character. That Mendel was saying that one factor is responsible for controlling one. Then Beadle and Totem, they gave a hypothesis that one gene, one enzyme hypothesis, one gene is coding for one enzyme. Then in polygenes we saw that more than one genes are controlling one trait, like we saw the example of skin color. Pleiotropy means one gene is going to influence more than one trait. This is the simple meaning of pleiotropy. So here one gene is influencing, or you can say controlling, more than one trait. Now this maybe not the situation that this gene is going to contribute to each of the trait equally. Maybe this gene is influencing one trait more as compared to the another trait. This situation can be there. This gene is going to influence one trait. The main function is to control one trait, but it is influencing up to some extent. It is also influencing the other trait also. We can see example of sweet pea. In sweet pea, the gene that is responsible for the flower of the color of the flower is also influencing the color of the seed coat. So the main expression of the gene is controlling the color of the flower, but up to some extent it is also controlling the color of the seed coat. So we are having various examples that the genes are, one single gene is going to influence more than one traits, that is pleiotropy. And another one is lethal genes. Lethal genes. What do we understand by lethal genes? See, some of the genes in our body are very important. Means these genes are coding for important proteins or important components of our body that are helping in our survival. Means if any of them, if their synthesis or secretion inhibits, or if their deformed form, means any of the abnormality comes during the secretion, then the death of the individual takes place. Means they are completely affecting our vitality. Those type of genes are known as lethal genes. So lethal genes are important for our vitality, and whenever because of any type of change or any type of mutation, there is defect coming in the lethal genes, and these defective lethal genes are going to form non-functional proteins. They are not going to function, or malfunctional. Their function is very less, or abnormal function. If the mutations or changes are going to affect these proteins, and these proteins are very important for our vitality, then because of all these factors, it is affecting the survival of an individual. Such type of genes are known as lethal genes. Now these lethal genes can be of two types. They can be recessive genes means they are going to express only at the recessive form. So if we are having this situation, one is dominant, mutation has taken place in, this was the situation normally, but after mutation one of them has become recessive. Now this is a heterozygote and this is only going to express, this is the lethal gene and it is going to express only in the homozygous situation. So with the recessive lethal genes in heterozygous situation, the individual can survive because now this individual is having at least one copy for the proper functioning. But what happens when there is dominant lethal gene? Dominant lethal gene simply means that one dominant gene is sufficient to produce a non-functional protein. So this individual can act as a carrier in recessive form, but the carriers are not going to survive in the dominant lethal gene. There will be affecting, this will be affecting the vitality of the individual. This was all about our crosses, Mendel crosses, other crosses that were given by many of the scientists after Mendel. So some were the Mendelian traits and the deviations that were coming after the Mendel's trait. Now we are moving ahead with our next topic, that is sex determination. Sex determination. In this we have to determine the sex of an individual. Now sex determination depends upon sex chromosomes. The chromosomes that are responsible for the determination of sex of an individual, whether the individual will be male or female, those are known as sex chromosomes. If we take example of a human cell, then human cell is having two type of chromosomes. These are autosomes and allosomes. Out of 46 chromosomes that are present in the nucleus, 44 chromosomes are autosomes. They are behaving as autosomes, means they are not having any of the genes that are related to sex of the individual. These genes, the genes they are having, they are having other functions. They are performing other functions of our body. The allosomes, they are having the genes that are related to the sex of the individual, and these are X and Y. So these are sex chromosomes. They are also known as allosomes. So in human beings, 2 sex chromosomes are present and 44 autosomes are present. Now when meiosis takes place, during gamete formation, when the chromosomes are going to align themselves, then these 2 chromosomes are behaving as homologous chromosomes. Means suppose this is X chromosome and this is Y chromosome. So during meiosis they are going to align themselves as a homologous chromosome, because we know that at metaphase stage all the homologous chromosomes are going to align themselves at a equatorial plane. They are going to also align themselves, but they are not similar in size. We were saying that homologous chromosomes are similar in shape and size, plus they are also carrying same type of genes. This is not the situation with the sex chromosome. X chromosome is a large size chromosome containing various genes, and Y chromosome is a very short chromosome that is containing only few genes. Still they are behaving as homologous chromosomes, going to align themselves during meiosis, and they will separate and enter into different gametes. This is how these sex chromosomes are going to behave. So we will discuss how many different type of sex chromosomes are present in different type of individual, and then we will see the mechanism of sex determination. So the first type of sex chromosomes that is present in is XY. It is found in human being, various insects like fruit fly, The organism that is having XX will behave as a female organism, and with XY chromosome it will behave as a male organism. The female is having two same sex chromosomes, so it will be homomorphic, and it will be heteromorphic because two different type of chromosomes are present. And when they are going to do reproduction, gamete formation will take place, then the gametes are also going to form differently. That we will talk about in the process of mechanism of sex determination. So this is one type of chromosome, sex chromosomes, that are present in these organisms. The second one is XX and XO. Y chromosome is missing in these organisms, and that is found in cockroaches and some of the roundworms. Here the organism that is having XX will behave as a female organism, and the organism which is having only one single X, this O, or you can say this 0, means one chromosome is missing. They are only having one single X chromosome, and this will behave as a male. So these type of organisms are having this type of sex chromosomes. The third one is ZW. Again here the females are homomorphic and the males are heteromorphic. ZW and ZZ. It is simply to distinguish between these. The organisms like some of the fishes, reptiles, butterflies, moths show these type of sex chromosomes. The difference from this one is here the ZW, the heteromorphic situation is shown by females. Female is heteromorphic. That is different from the upper cases. And the male is homomorphic. It is going to behave as a female, and this individual is going to behave as a male. And the fourth one is this is missing. Only one single Z chromosome is there, and it is also present in some of the butterflies and moths. Now the female is only having one sex chromosome, and it will grow as a female. The male is homomorphic, that is having both the sex chromosomes. So these are the sex chromosomes that are present in different organisms. Now how sex determination takes place? On when sex determination takes place, sex determination is going to take place when the sperm is going to fuse with ovum. Means at the time of fertilization, the fusion process is going to take place, and at that point the gametes, or you can say the chromosomes, the sex chromosomes that are present in these gametes, they are going to determine whether the next individual, their progeny, will be a male or female. Let's see in the process of mechanism of sex determination. I am taking the first case, that is XX and XY, and simply the example of human being. So what happens in human beings? Parents will be there, male parent and female parent. The male parent is having 44 autosomes plus XY. We know males are XY. Female is also having 44 autosomes and XX. This is the situation that is present in the parents. Now they are going to form the gametes, and two type of gametes are formed from the father. 22A plus X. This is the first type of gamete that is going to form. I am circling the gamete to differentiate. The second will be again 22A plus Y. These are the two gametes. That's why males are heterogametic, because they are going to form two different type of gametes. From here we are getting gametes of same type. These are the gametes that are going to come from the mother. Now the sex determination of the child will be depending upon the sperm, because these female gametes are containing the same sex chromosomes. So if X is going to combine to fuse with the ovum, the child will be a girl child, and if this gamete containing Y is going to fuse with them, then it will be a boy child. So girl child will have 44A plus XX. From here also the second will be 44A plus XX, while the boy child this is going to fuse with this plus XY, and again this is going to fuse with this will be XY. So these are the possibilities that are going to come. There is 50-50% chances of girl child and boy child, and this is determined at the time of fertilization, that which sperm is going to fuse with the ovum. This is how it is taking place in human beings. Now here I want to discuss a different topic, that in Drosophila, we were saying that in Drosophila these are the females and these are the males, but the scientists have found that in Drosophila Y chromosome is not responsible for maleness. In human beings, what we are saying, that Y chromosome is responsible for maleness. If the ovum is going to receive Y chromosome, then the fetus is going to grow into a boy. But here Y in Drosophila, this is the case of Drosophila, Y chromosome is not responsible for maleness. The individual will be male or female. That means the sex of the individual is depending upon the ratio of X chromosomes ratio autosomes, number of autosomes. Their ratio is showing, means X upon A. Their ratio is going to determine the sex of the individual. How? If the ratio of X chromosome to autosomal ratio is coming to be 1, then the individual, the organism is going to grow into a female, a normal female. Simply it means that 2 autosomes are there and 2 X chromosomes are there. The ratio is going to be 1. So that is going to grow into a female. If this X upon A ratio exceeds this 1 point, suppose it is 1.5, means it is going to exceed 1, then it is going to develop as a meta-female. Meta-female means a infertile female. The female will not be fertile. When the XA ratio is 0.5, then it is behaving as a normal male. Proper normal male, that is fertile. And if this ratio is coming lower than this 0.5, this organism is going to behave as a meta-male, or you can say infertile male. This is how sex determination is taking place in Drosophila. And the individuals who are lying between this 0.5 and 1, they are intersexes. Means they are not normal. Neither they are complete male nor they are complete female. They are having some abnormalities in their body. And this theory that was given for the sex determination of chromosomes is known as genic balance theory. Theory for sex determination. And that was the case that was present in Drosophila. Now in another conditions also we can simply see same situation is going to happen. The second one was XX and XO. Here also it is seen in cockroaches and other organisms. We will see that the autosomes are going to present and the sex chromosomes are going to present. This is the case in females and this is the case in males. So when gametes are going to form, here this is one type of gamete that is going to form the another type, A plus X, and the second one plus is A plus O. So from here the gamete formation, they are going to fuse and the individual will be, if this is combining with this one, again 2A plus X, and if this is combining with this one, 2A plus XX. So these will be females, and if they are going to combine with this one, XO, and again 2A plus XO, and these will be males. Exactly same situation is happening with the third one. Here also two different type of gametes are forming and same type of gametes are forming, and in the fourth situation also. So I am not explaining these one. The situation is always going to same. These are this sex determination is simply depending upon the chromosomes. So this is genetic sex determination. Now in some of the organisms, environment is playing role in the process of sex determination. Means if some of temperature is there or the environment in which organism is surviving, that is influencing. Like in some of the environmental sex determination. So here environmental factors are playing role in the process of sex determination. Like in alligators, some of the organisms, temperature, how much temperature is there, that is going to decide whether the individual is grow into a male or female. Some of the worms are there, they are at larval stage, they are not having any of the sex. When they are going to develop freely on the substratum, they are going to develop into a female individual, and if they are going to lie on the surface of another female, they are going to behave as a male individual. So environment is playing role in the process of sex determination. Next time we will talk about variations and mutations.